I would like to welcome everyone to today's webinar. Today's topic is in the Arc Flash Label Designer, looking at conditional operations. Some of the things we'll look at today, we'll start off with a brief introduction on the Arc Flash label and some of the requirements as specified by the Nfpa 70E, and then we'll get into the label designer in EasyPower. And then at the end, if you have any questions, we'll try to answer those. So if we look at the Nfpa 70E 2015 requirements for an Arc Flash label, basically there are three requirements. One is the nominal system voltage. The second one is the Arc Flash boundary. And then the third is at least one of the following, either the incident energy and corresponding working distance. That is if you're using the software to calculate your incident energies, or if you are using the tables in 137 C15A-B or 130.7 C15B to determine what the PPE category is. You can enter one of those, but it's specified that not both be shown. You can also do a minimum arc rating of the clothing, or you may have your own site-specific levels of PPE. So based on the Nfpa 70E, that is what is required to be on your Arc Flash label. So here is a standard label that you would get if you printed from the EasyPower software. You will notice that it has some additional information than is specified in the Article 130.5 of the Nfpa 70E 2015. So there's a lot of information that you may see on Arc Flash labels that is not required. But typically the Arc Flash label does have the shock hazard information and the limited and restricted approach distances. And then it is nice to have the equipment name so that you have a reference. In this template that I'm showing, there is also the date and the method of calculation. So that's a little introduction to the Arc Flash label. And so now we'll get into EasyPower and look at some of the different operations that are available in the label designer. So I will get out of this and go into EasyPower. For this presentation, I am just going to be using the Protection 1 file that you can find in the samples with a slight modification that you'll notice later. But for the most part, this is, if you need to, after the presentation, you want to go play with some of this, this is the file that I'll be using. So in order to create a Arc Flash label in the software, if you go to the short circuit button, and the first thing we need to do is fault the buses so that we get Arc Flash results. So up here in the ribbon, we have the Arc Flash symbol, and we need to have that checked. We're also looking at three-phase faults. So both of these buttons need to be checked, and then I will click on the fault buses. Pressing the fault buses will fault all the buses. If I zoom in, you'll notice that there are Arc Flash results that correspond on the one line that correspond to the equipment. If we go into short circuit options, under the Arc Flash hazard, the results that are being shown are for excluding main. If you are not familiar with this, I would recommend looking at some of the other videos on the website that refer to faulting buses and getting Arc Flash results, and also these Arc Flash options. So once you have the Arc Flash results, if I go to Arrange for Arc Flash up in the ribbon, it'll pull up the Arc Flash hazard report. In order to print labels, you need to have the Arc Flash hazard report active, and then you can go directly to design labels from the label button in the ribbon, but for this first part I just want to show you the labels. So by clicking that, it brings up a print preview of the label, and this is similar to the label that we were showing in the slide at the beginning of the presentation. This over here in the label template, there are many templates that we have supplied with the software that cover some of the different templates that people use and different types of printing or printers that we support from the template standpoint. Most label printers that you may want to use are supported whether we have defined those or not. Just a matter of creating a label that will print properly to the label stock that you're using. So this first one is, we have it defined as a 4x6 die cut 1 2015 with warning. And this is basically the same information. There's also another one that is a 4x6 die cut 1 2015 without warning. And so in this case, the label does not have the warning because it is assumed that the label stock that will be being printed to, it already has that on it, and so that is not required to be printed. So you'll have to understand what you're printing to when you want to design your label. But there are a bunch of different types of labels that you can support. So through this this exercise or this presentation, hopefully this gives you a little bit more information. I don't plan to go through all the specifics of designing labels. There are other presentations that are on the website that you can look at for some of the basics of the Arc Flash label. We will cover some of it just because it's necessary to show you the conditional support in the designer, but I may not get to show everything, so if there is something that you need or want to look at. In here, if I click on selected, the standard 4x6 multicolor, if we scroll through the different labels that have been printed, you'll see as we go through, so the fourth one is M1. You can see as we go through. In this case, for the multicolor, once it becomes above 40 calories per centimeter squared, the text changes from if we go back to the previous label, a warning with an orange background, it is now danger with a red background. Some users like to have this implemented. So this is an example of how of a use for a conditional in the label template. So once you are kind of familiar, to design a label, up here on the ribbon, you'll choose Design Labels. So if we press that button, I'll get a list of all the devices. So these are the different labels that you might be using, and And then these are the different templates that were in the template list. So the way this designer has been created, you will you want to select a existing label template, and then you're going to want to modify that. So the first thing you want to do is find one that's similar to the one that you want to create. And so in this case, if my label stock does not have a warning, or already has a warning on it and a color, and I don't need that, then I might go to the one without warning and use that as my starting point. If I want to use the one with, or if I'm going to add the one with warning and print that, then I might want to start with this. So the first thing you want to do when you're going to go edit a label is you're going to press the Start Edit button, and you'll get on the right side a section for template properties, another for graphical items, and then template settings. The first thing you want to do before you you start editing the label that you're using is to go to the template settings title and make a change to the title. So for this, I'm going to add webinar as a title. This will define it when you look through the template list, and I'm going to get rid of, I'll just leave it 4x6 and webinar. So then the next thing I typically do is to save that title. So I'll do a save edits as, and then I'll just save it with the same name. Oops, misspelled that. Okay, so we have a file structure of AFL. It's basically XML is the code type. So this is just so you don't have to go in and code it. It just is a graphical way to create the label, but it is stored here. So I'm going to click Save, and now you'll notice in the templates, it's a 4x6 webinar is my template, and I would start to edit this again. So, for example, in the original example, or going through the templates, I showed that you might want to change the color of the background on this warning, or maybe the text. So if you're starting with an existing label and you're just really making changes to it, you can just go and click on the text, and you can see under the graphical items that the second one lights up or is highlighted, and that says that that is selected, or tells me that that's been selected. You can also tell by the ring on the item. So this is basically the item and the information that we're going to be using. So right now, this warning is shown all the time. But if I have a case where I want to show it based on incident energy and for above 40 calories, then I can click on this conditional on, and there's a bunch of variables that are here. I'm going to go till I find the one that says incident energy. So now this is going to be a conditional statement based on incident energy. So there's two things here. I can do it one of two ways. I can make the warning the default, or I can make the danger the default. Since the warning is going to be on most of my labels, and it was already there, I'll leave that as default. And I'm going to change this to say danger. And then since I want to make the danger above or equal, greater than or equal to 40, and that was set in this case by default, but I could change it if I wanted to use a different conditional, and I can say greater than 40. So now, if I click off of here, and I go to, so bus 3 is at 1.3 calories per centimeter squared. So therefore, it's less than 40, so it's going to continue to show warning. If I go to bus 7, bus M1, main switchgear, we're still under 40. Okay, my PSE bus is at 1,279 calories per centimeter squared. That's above 40, so the warning changed to danger. And as we continue, the refiner is above 40, so it has the switchgear 4, and then now we're back under 40, so it will say warning. So that's for the warning. If I want to change the color, I would select on the background color, and again, this is this rectangle fill under the graphical items. So in this case, if I want to do the fill based on a condition, if I do the same condition, by default, again, it's orange. And in this case, it's going to be greater than or equal to 40. So I'll type in 40. Okay, and then I'll change the color. So I can do any color, but I'll choose the red. And now if I start scrolling through these again, now the background has become red, and what our change previously was to danger, so now it's danger and red. So if you have an assortment of colors, you can just do that for different incident energy levels. And we'll show later in a few other in a few minutes. I'll show you how you can do something with individual PPE levels. Another case that comes up has to do with the class, the voltage glove classes. By default in EasyPower, when we use the class, we follow the voltages that are in the standards. There are some that, for instance, at 480 volts, 480 volts, like to have a class 0 instead of what EasyPower specifies as a class 00. So we can look at this one. So I'll start by making that a conditional statement to make the point here. But basically, I want to follow EasyPower's method, but just for the 480 volt range, since it's close to the double lock gloves being at 500, max voltage at 500. To set that, in this case, where previously I did a conditional on the incident energy, this time I want to do it on the voltage. I can do it either on kilovolts or on volts, so I'm just going to choose volts in this case. So by default, we can keep what EasyPower's been doing, but we need to look at, I only want to change a voltage range. I don't want to, if I was, for instance, and I could do this, if say all your gloves were just the voltage glove class 0 and not 00, then we could just set if the voltage is less than or equal to, say, 510 volts, say, for instance. You may have a different number that you want to set it at, but in this case, for 510 volts, you could say class, and instead of the variable glove description, I'm going to select that and I'm going to delete it. And I'm just going to type in the number 0. So for, in this case, if I click on another bus, this is a 13.8 kV bus, as you can see. So it's a class 2. So it's still using this default gloves description. And bus 7, same. Bus 9 is still above 510 volts. So now you can see that for a 480, the 480 volt bus, it's now using this class 0 voltage gloves. So it's not using what the variable EasyPower is providing. It's just hard-coded to be a class 0. But in this case, it's for all voltages that are below 480 volts. So we go down to this panel 2. It's a 208 volt bus, and it's class 0. Well, you may not want class 0 for your low voltage. So we can put in another statement here, and I'm going to click on this because this is similar, and I'm going to say duplicate item. So in this case, I only, for example, I may only care for voltages between 450 and 510 to have the class 0, and then for the next, for less than 450, we'll go back to the class 00 gloves. In this case, instead of typing, I could type in 00, but I may not. There may be, in this case, it's just one class, so it's okay. But you may have a case where you may want to it may change based on voltage. So I may want to go back to what the original, basically making this default. So if I go to the gloves, let's see, yeah, gloves description. Now, by choosing that, if we, I clicked off, so I need to click back on my gloves. So basically now this is set up so that if it's less than 450 volts, 450 volts, it'll use the what we've the setting or the number that EasyPower gives as the based on the variable. The from 450 to 510, it'll be based on what we've hard coded, and then by default, so anything above 510 will fall under the default, which will use the glove class. So if I click off here, we're back to 480, and now our 208 volt is back to 00. So this is a conditional, whereas in the first one it was just based on one incident energy. This is different different comments for different different ranges of voltage in this case, but the same thing could be any unit that you have. And I'll show you another example of this in a little bit. So those are are two examples that I want to show on the label. I am going to and then once you finish with your modifications to the label, before you change the label, you'll want to make sure you save the template. So now my changes have been saved, and I can set this as my default label template. So if I went back to, if I close out of this window and I go back into the label, print labels for all devices is what I'll say. Now this is my default label, and all my changes that I made will now be available. So if we select devices and then scroll through the different devices, you'll see that all the changes, the class 0, which is here, and then also the danger and the red are there. For the next part of the presentation, I have a let's go to design labels, and I have one that I've pre-prepped as a blank label. And basically what I had to do to create that was I just took one of the existing labels and went in and deleted all the different items. So if I go to start edit, there's still a couple that are in the background, but for the most part this is a blank label. And so I can just start, if the labels that are provided, the templates are not a good starting point, you could do this, but this will give me a little bit of a chance to show you some special things that you might put into your label. In here up on the ribbon, you can add any item to the, so if I want to add a line for the label, you can do that. Sometimes it's easier to, instead of using the resize, it's just easier to specify the coordinates here. So if I want it to be a straight line, I could type in 1. So the x-axis goes from 1 to 5.78 inches, and then the y is at 1 inch. So if you want to pull in the properties, if we click on that, it pulls up the properties. So you can continue to move. You can also do a rectangle, and this is like the colored fill orange and red that we were playing with earlier. If you want to give it some color, as far as the fill, you would just choose your color. So there's a bunch of different things. What I would like to start with, and to delete an item, you can select it and hit delete. So I'll delete both of these items. So there's some other things that we can insert text, insert an image. So if you have a picture you want on there, or one thing, if I go, actually I'll discard these edits and go back to another template just to show. So if we go back here, this symbol here with the exclamation, the triangle and the exclamation mark, it's a picture. So if you want to add something like that, you can just insert the picture. So, picked the wrong one. I want to pick the blank label that I created. Go to Start Edit, and I'm going to add in a text box. So I am adding in a new text box. It gets placed, and what I want to show here is one of the references to in the Nfpa 70E is a minimum arc rating of clothing. You may, in your label, you may not want to show the, for example, if the incident energy that's calculated is 3.2, at your facility you may have certain ranges of clothing, like for instance maybe 8 calories per centimeter squared is one level, and then the next level would be 40 calories per centimeter squared, or maybe you have maybe you follow the table H3B that's in the Nfpa 70E, so it's 1.2, 12, and 40, and maybe you don't want the energy, the specific energy, but you just want the highest energy for what your clothing is rated for. So in this case, I could set this up, and I can do it as a condition on the incident energy. And so I'm going to do less than or equal to, and I'm going to, for the first range, I'm going to do 1.2. And the only thing I'm going to, and I'll say, and maybe I'll, instead of putting in the max number, I'll put in the range. So from 0 to 1.2 calories per centimeter squared. Okay. Now I want to move this down, and I'm going to duplicate the item. So for instance, let's say my next category range is maybe I implemented my my PPE a while back, and my next range is 8 calories, as it was, as the different PPE levels were previously, but now applying it to incident energy, if we choose 8. So now my range changes because this goes from 1.2 to 8. And I can type in 8 here. And then let's say the next range, I'm going to continue to duplicate the item, and we have another one, and let's say that the next range is 25. So from 8 to 25, and then maybe the next one is from, just delete this one, to 40. And then maybe we'll say greater than 40 calories per centimeter squared as the default. And you could have the calories per centimeter squared as just a text on the label as another text box that never changes, but for this case we'll just include it in the part that changes. So we go from 1.2 to 8 to 25, and I need to change this to be 40. And so now as we go through this, let me click on this so that you can continue to see this, even though it doesn't necessarily tell you. But for this, I'm going to add one other text box, and I'm going to move this off of our text box we just created. And I'm going to add a variable, and I'm going to just add the incident energy so that we can see what the actual incident energy is. So I've just created a text box and added the variable. So for bus 3, the incident energy is 1.3. It falls within that range. 1.8, 22, 0.5. This one's above the 40. So this is a way that if you don't want to show the actual incident energy, you could show a range or a maximum level. But you can use the conditional to show different text instead of just showing what's in the variable. This is if you're concerned with how to update your labels in the future, especially if your system changes, and you're concerned with you know, my label went from 4 calories to maybe 6.2 calories per centimeter squared. Do I have to change the label, or what do I have to do when that change happens? This is one way that you could use basically the second condition in the equipment labeling in the Nfpa 70, where you're looking at what is the minimum ARC rating of the clothing. This might be one way to apply that, or the site-specific PPE levels. You could just call this your level. So that might be a way to solve a problem in the future, where then if the only labels you have to change would be the ones that you were outside of this range, which require a different PPE. Another use of this, where we have all the different incident energies, and so for this case, I'm going to make some minor changes to this, because I'm just going to instead of going through and filling this in again, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete this range, and so I click on it and go remove item. Actually, before I go on to the next, if I had entered these in a different order, so like if I set them incorrectly, so that maybe I put the 40 where the 8 is and the 8 where the 40 is, I can click on the sort by value, and the application will resort to make sure that the ranges are correct, and that there's no overlap in ranges. But I do find that it's easiest while you're trying to create these to try to do them in order so that you don't forget something. So in this case, I'm going to change this one to 12. This is following the table H3B. But instead of using the calories this time, you may want to describe, or you may want to actually put specific PPE. If we go back to, and I'm going to save my template since we have quite a few things on there, and I'm going to go back to our warning, with warning, the first one that we did. There is and then I'll have to go into edit it so that we can see what's here. But if I click on this row here, in this default label, we are specifying protective clothing and PPE, refer to Nfpa 70E 2015 table H3B. This clothing description is set in the in the library, and we have some users who like to actually specify all the PPE for the different ranges. So in the library, there's not enough room to enter all this. So so if this is the case, and you're one of the users who want on the label to show all the specific PPE that you might you need your user to wear, we can, if I go back to the blank label, start edit, and I guess I forgot to save it, which is too bad because my text box here is not showing. Let's make sure in case it's just not. Nope. So I guess we'll have to recreate that. So you'll get a. So we'll keep this and we'll put that up there, and then I'm going to add another text box, but we'll just start by showing you. I'm going to do this on the conditional again on the incident energy, and if I do it on less than or equal to, and we'll do 1.2, and I have some text that I've used, and I'm just going to so for this case, this is the text for, let's see if I can show these. Guess it's not going to work, but to show them both at the same time. But so I have some different text for the different cloud PPE or incident energy levels. So if I use the I click out of it so that I select it, I'm going to duplicate the item, and so I'm going to delete this text, and I need to change the range. I'm going to change it to 12. And then go back to this. Actually, for this example, we'll do 8 because that's what my text says. And I need to duplicate the item again. So let's select on it. I've had to change the resolution of the screen for the presentation here. So if you have a little bit larger screen, you can see quite a bit more information. So you don't have to scroll up and down quite as much. But I'll duplicate the item again. And then we'll go, in this case, we'll just go to 40. And we'll delete this. And we'll do, so this is up to 40. Actually, okay. Click on that, and then this is for the 40, and then the final ones are default, so this is above 40, and so in this case we have some text that states that no clothing available, do not access it. So instead of doing this, now you'll notice that it goes off the screen, and there are some things that we can do to make it look better, but you can see how you can use the conditional statements to actually put in your different PPE levels. And since the one that I'm showing is this one, let's see if I can. And then, so I'll change the height of the box. So you can see here on our text that you could actually specify the PPE, and we could move it around to different areas of the box. If you need 2 rows, or 2 columns, we could add a second box and put the text that's on the on this side in the appropriate spot. So we could. So you may have to work with it, but what I want to show is that if using the conditionals, and you can do some special things here. One other thing with this is I have shown you how to use, if we go back to here, this method as far as using the default. We could do the incident energy, and then down here under visibility, I could choose the incident energy to do visibility on, and I could say if it's less than 40 calories, then the box won't or if the box will show if it's under 40 calories. If it's over, then it doesn't show. So this is another way that you could, if for instance you have different clothing or something, you could do separate. I could put 2 text boxes on top of each other. For example, if I started with this text box and put so I have 2 text boxes. Let's go over here. I'll call it text box 1. And then I'll go to this one, call it text box 2. So I may have the same text box, but I may want it to show at different times. I could choose, if we stick with incident energy, I could do it based on, so this text box I could do it 40, and so text box 1, so if I click on text box 2, I could do it at conditional on incident energy as well, and do it less than 40. So one of my text boxes will always show. It's just conditional on that. So you could have a bunch of different text boxes that use that conditional on. So there's a bunch of we got about 10 minutes left here, and so we got a few different or we've shown quite a few different things that you can do as far as using the incident energy. There are a lot of variables, as you can see, that you can use to make conditionals on. Some of them you may not need, you may not use. There's probably only a few that you actually, units is kind of hard to use as a conditional, but these are all the variables that we support in the label designer. So you may find some ones that are interesting. One thing to note is you can use PPE levels if you have site-specific PPE, and you can specify it as your different levels, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I don't have those set up on this software, so but this is how you would do that. This is taking the PPE levels that are set up in the library, and you could apply it to that. So instead of using the incident energy, you could do the PPE levels for that. You can also, for example, this is the last comment, or last thing I'll show is, for example, I'll use the device name, but there are other things like comments and things where instead of using an equal, I can use a contains. So for example, maybe I have a special label for switchgear that's different than all my other labels. Well, I may, in all my switchgear, I may have the same, I may say switchgear in the name. So I could, in this case, I could do SWG as my conditional. And so if we'll go back to our, we'll say this is switchgear, and this is other. So let's see. And I got to get rid of the conditional statement down here. So we'll make it unconditional. If you do have a conditional, you can make it unconditional. Just click on, I can do the same thing here by making unconditional. So you can see, based on this one, that my bus is other. In this case, it says switchgear because in the ID name here, it says SWG. So you can't, there are things that if you do have a field that you're trying to work with, there may be something you can work with here, like starts with or contains. There are other, so it's looking at the string, bus comments, bus label comments, those fields, all are strings. You could do something with those to do conditions on a conditional based on those. So like here where we have a bus label or the label comment, this is for all the labels. This may not work as well, but if I go back to, so we'll save the template here and go back to the, actually I don't want to go to the short circuit options, I want to go to the database. If you go into the bus dialog, we also support this comment and labels and this comment and labels. They're different comments variables, so you might be able to use these fields to do, if you have different labels or different text or things of that nature. Those are different ways that you might be able to use a text string to do some kind of conditional statement. So that really covers what I want to talk about today, and hopefully this gives you some information as far as how to use conditionals to create your labels based on different conditions. And you know, there are other things. Just play with it, and you'll see other things that pop up. If you do have some questions and you are on the current maintenance, you can contact tech support if you're a new user. We'll be happy to, and you're just trying to figure this out for the first time, contact us. We'll help you out. But the label designer has been designed so that basically you can take any label that using and get the label that you desire. As you know, you have to make sure that you got the specifics that are in Nfpa 70E, and but there are many other things that you can add to it, and based on your own company's policies. So at this point, that's the end of the main presentation.